Well, hello everyone. Welcome to week 5. It's our second last week, which is very exciting. And I'm really excited about some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. I'm also very excited that Luke is joining us to host today. So big round of applause for Luke. Yeah, fantastic. We've been trying to organise this for a while, so it's so good that it's happened today, just the way that it worked out. And we're going to have a fun time over the next little while. We've got a little activity that we want to do at the end, so we're going to leave some time for that. And it's going to be fun. So, Luke, why don't you kick us off?
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks, Glenn, for inviting me to host. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, we love your MC skills, man. We've seen you at weddings, at parties.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Fantastic.
So for a roughie like me who's only really touched on what's been happening on YouTube, can you guys just let us know what we spoke about at the last week?
Yeah, that's good. So last week we talked about rumination. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are the big kind of stuff that you kind of worked on with us last week?
I think last week we talked about thoughts.
Yep.
So how we can get hooked on thoughts, how thoughts can become sticky when we're dealing with some fairly tricky emotional stuff, and the sorts of things that we as humans do to try and get rid of thoughts, the lengths that we go to, and sometimes that can make it bigger and worse.
Yeah.
So, we talked about that. And then we talked about how sometimes it can go the other way. So instead of trying to run away from the thoughts or pretend they're not there or push them under the carpet or that sort of thing, sometimes we can get addicted a bit to thinking over and over again, and telling anyone who'll listen, this is what happened and it was so bad, and how that can be, that can feel really good and be hard to give up, but also can take us away from the kind of person we want to be and the kind of life we want to live, take us away from our values. So.
Gosh, that's right. We did talk a lot about that. We talked about avoidance and distraction are their kind of go-to strategies for dealing with those sort of sticky thoughts and how that's not.
And then we did an exercise around how to defuse or separate.
Yeah, so that was
from those thoughts, get space from those thoughts.
I'm in my thoughts or whatever. I'm in my head.
Yeah.
That was the exercise that you did.
That's right. So dipping in and out of the river.
Yeah, that was super great. Oh, we talked about dropping the rope.
We did.
We talked a little bit about dropping the rope.
Yep, so rather than trying to push the thoughts away and pretend they're not there or distract ourselves from them or, whatever we do to outrun them, let's just drop the struggle and let them be there. And we don't need to wait for them to go away before we can be okay.
That was powerful, that exercise too. Super, super good. So if you missed last week, I'd say go see our YouTube, but we didn't get any audio last week, so we're trying to repair the YouTube before we can publish it. So hopefully by the time you see this, that will be available online, so with or without audio.
So that's the reason why I missed it. So.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually not there yet, so but hopefully by the time people see this, it'll be there.
Am I wrong, but did it sound like it was touching on that victimization or victim mentality kind of thing, where you're happy about playing the poor person kind of thing? Or?
Oh, no. Last week we did talk about a lot about those kind of 2 a.m. in the morning stuff. When you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're thinking about this situation at work that happened and how you were slighted and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff, we spent some time on that, and that was really helpful. Actually, I found it really helpful. So.
Cool. Well, it sounds like I've got to watch it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you wouldn't have had a chance yet, but maybe one day.
And for this week, what's our topic for this week? What are we talking about?
Yeah, do you want to kick us off?
Well, this week we've called it, mine is a special case, so it's a bit of a grab bag of things that didn't quite fit anywhere else. So we're going to talk about what if it's me that I can't forgive?
Yeah.
What if it's God that I can't forgive?
Yeah.
And just also working through guilt.
Yes.
And then again, we're going to do a few reflective, more experiential things at the end. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've got some scripts that we're going to work through around saying sorry. So use these words if you need to get started. And Luke and I are going to demonstrate this. So this is going to be a wonderful little experience for both of us.
Cool. So what happens if it is myself that I need to forgive?
Yeah.
So what's the course there?
Well, maybe I'll start on this one.
Yeah, okay.
So I've just written down here on the notes, you don't know what I've done, you don't know how bad it is. Forgiving others is something I can do, but I'll never forgive myself for what happened. Like, that is a common kind of narrative that we all kind of can live into at times. And so in that case, it's really myself, in a sense, that needs to receive that forgiveness. So I think the first thing we need to remind ourselves from a faith point of view, is that when we ask God to forgive us, he does so, like, completely. He completely washes us clean. He removes our sin as far as the east is from the west. And after we've done that, after we've actually forgiven him, after we've actually asked him for the forgiveness, and he's forgiven us, rather, then we are completely forgiven, and any residual judgment that we're feeling is not coming from him. So I think that's the first thing we can diffuse around this kind of thing, right? If it's myself I need to forgive, if I've asked God's forgiveness, okay, that kind of dimension of the forgiveness is gone. Forgiving ourselves is easier, though, if we understand that Jesus is beautiful and loves us and cares about us and is compassionate with us. And if we take all of those kind of ideas into that situation, we can reclaim the idea that we are beloved children of him. This is my son, this is my daughter, who I love. With them I am well pleased. We can live into that kind of narrative. And I think sometimes we have to come back to that. Like, sometimes we just have to come back to Scripture and what it says about us and remind ourselves of that. Because when these inside narratives that we have about ourselves are really hard to change just on our own. We need other voices coming in that will help us reshape those narratives. And Scripture is a great tool to use that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to add to that.
Yeah, great.
First of all, I think this is a space where we can get into emotional reasoning a little bit, so we might feel guilty. And I guess the function of guilt, the purpose why God gave us that feeling is, to prompt us and to examine and that sort of thing. Is there something I need to do or, repent of or that sort of thing? But sometimes that can be misplaced. And sometimes we can carry around, we have been forgiven, and the guilt feeling can still show up. And that can we can get very fused to that. So instead of, I did something wrong or whatever, it's like I'm bad.
Right.
And that is a problem.
Yes.
Because that becomes part of our identity.
Yep.
So, that was one thought that I had. The other one escapes me, so keep going. I'm sure it'll come back to me.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we've said again and again is, in this journey of forgiveness, we can be honest with God about these things that we're processing right now. And I think that it's important for us to take those feelings and thoughts with him. We can sit with him and with those feelings, and we can all sit together, and that's actually very safe. We can actually do this. It's come back. I knew it would.
Okay. So the other thing is just that, building on what you were saying, all of these techniques and things that psychology has to offer, that's great. But what Glenn was saying about the word is that we are going to flip and flop in what we believe and that sort of thing, and that's not truth. The word is truth.
Yeah.
And not only is it fact and it remains true, what God says about you, whether you believe it or not that particular day, it's still true.
Yeah.
But also there is a supernatural grace on the word.
Yes.
That turbocharges our efforts.
Yeah, that's right.
To renew our mind or whatever it is that we want to do.
Yeah.
There is grace beyond what we can do in our own strength and in our own power.
Yeah, I think that's really important too.
So,
it's not a willpower issue, like it's a transformation issue.
No, that's right, And so that sort of healing work that needs to happen can be done far beyond what we can even dare to believe or imagine, you know. God can do that. He can get to those places that seem beyond our reach, and they probably are.
That's so good.
Sorry to hijack your bit.
No, that's okay. You can hijack away.
Cool. So if someone's stubborn, maybe like me, and they need some help in getting over the harsh self-criticism, what would be some practices to help with that?
Now's a good time to play the video, I think.
Okay,
Do you want me to talk a little bit first?
Why don't we play the video, and then you can talk
and then we can unpack the video. But the spoiler alert with the video is it's diffusion is the strategy or the approach in psychology that we've been talking about all the way through. So, that is that mindfulness practice of I am not my thoughts, I experience thoughts, I'm not my feelings, I have feelings.
Yeah.
They are passing travellers in me. They are not me.
Yeah,
So
don't believe everything you
yeah,
think.
don't believe everything you think.
Yeah.
Sometimes our feelings help us, sometimes they lead us astray, and same with our thoughts.
Yeah.
And the skill or our job is to be able to step back from them a little bit and to be able to decide, look, is this consistent with my values? If so, yes, I'm going to act on those.
Yeah.
If not, I can choose behaviours that are more consistent with my
Yeah.
values. So the video illustrates that. So
This is called the sushi train.
yeah.
So let's see if this happens. Might need to pump up the volume on this one.
So imagine that you're sitting in front of a sushi train at one of those Japanese restaurants, and there are all these dishes going past on the train. And in the center, there is the chef creating all of these dishes. The chef is like your mind, and the dishes are like all of those thoughts, ideas, memories that keep cropping up, coming and going all day long. Some of the dishes on that sushi train may be very appealing. Some of the stuff on that sushi train may be unappealing. And some of it may be neutral, and take it or leave it. And it's much the same with our thoughts, memories, ideas that pop up throughout the day. Some of them are very pleasant, we really like them, we want to hold on to them. Some of them are very unpleasant and we just want to turn away from them, get rid of them. And a lot of them are kind of neutral, they're neither positive nor negative. So all day long, the sushi chef of our mind is creating all these different dishes, and the train keeps carrying them round and round. These thoughts keep cropping up throughout the day. Now we can learn to step back and watch our thoughts coming and going in much the same way that we can step back and watch that sushi train. An unpleasant dish pops up on the train, we don't have to turn away in disgust and horror. A pleasant dish comes by, we don't have to reach over and grab it and stuff it down our mouth. And we can do the same with our own thoughts. We can step back with an attitude of openness and curiosity and watch them come and stay and go in their own good time.
Yeah, so the analogy is that our thoughts and our feelings, but let's go with thoughts, are like the little dishes on the sushi train. And some of the, we can just watch them go round and round and round and round, and some of them resonate with us or are consistent with our values. So we're like, yeah, I'm actually going to, take some of that, and I'm going to...
This is a good thought. I like this thought. So.
That's right, yeah. Or, that can also happen with things that are not consistent with our values. They're sort of like invitations, like, hey, do you remember that time that person said that about you? They must really not like you. And then that's the invitation to take. It's a tempting kind of a thought.
Yeah,
I want to take it and engage with it and that sort of thing. But the skill that you can learn with practice is to just let it go on by. And it'll come back around again on the train. You'll see it again, and it'll be, oh, yeah, but they did. They said that it's not right. You shouldn't. But you can still just notice the feelings that show up when that happens, and decide not to play, not to engage with it, or not.
Yeah.
You can decide to, actually, I will. We have some agency over that.
Yeah.
That's what the analogy means to me. But does anyone else have any?
Yeah, I love that, what you just said there. I think that disgusting fish that is like...
Yeah.
is not quite entirely accurate, because there's something appealing about some of these disgusting thoughts we have about, I want to think about that time they slighted me or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's almost like it's a nice smelling disgusting fish, or I don't know, but that metaphor doesn't work then, right? So, but I like that this is...
Yeah, you're right. I might need to think about that one a little bit longer.
but whatever the case, like the noticing is the important.
Or maybe the disgusting fish is just a thought that doesn't hook you.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas some unhelpful things are dressed up as attractive things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they do hook us.
Yeah.
So the invitation is still there,
Yeah.
even if it's not helpful for us to,
that's
or
good.
even if it makes us feel kind of more enraged and that there is some weird addictive thing about ruminating on.
Yeah.
I think it is our brain just trying to solve it
Solve
and
the
trying to
problem.
help us.
Yeah.
But it's actually not helpful at 2 a.m, as
No,
we discussed last
that's right.
week. So, yeah, so we can learn to notice the thought and watch the sushi train go right on by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. So I guess that's the skill that we're talking about. Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. So, yeah, bit of discernment and identifying what's going on.
For sure. And I mean, this comes back even in our spiritual life to our prayer life, that we can say, you know what, there's all of these horrible thoughts and feelings that are wandering past on my sushi train, and I can bring all of them into my prayer life and say, God, this is what's sort of stirring and kicking around right now, and I would love you to sit with me, God, as we look at all of these things,
Yeah.
so that I don't get caught up in the whole fused with some of those ideas. So yeah.
And just in the context of this question, which is what if it's myself that I need to forgive?
Yeah.
In that case, on the sushi train, it would be but you did this thing,
Yeah.
and no one could ever forgive you for that. You
Yeah.
should never forgive, it was too bad.
Yes.
Ever forgive yourself for that.
Yeah.
That's your punishment.
Yeah.
And, getting fused to that guilt, so that emotional reasoning again of, I feel bad, so I am bad
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you can notice that you have this very difficult feeling to experience, and notice that the more you try to push it away, the bigger
Yeah.
it gets, and it's not going away,
Yeah.
but that you are not that feeling.
Yeah.
You're experiencing that feeling right
So
now.
good.
And even if you're having those thoughts which are persecuting you and which are very critical about
Yeah.
no one could ever forgive you for this,
Yeah.
that's not what the word says.
Yeah.
You are who you are,
Yeah.
that God created you to be.
Yeah.
And there is grace available for healing
Yeah.
in that space,
Yeah.
no matter what you feel.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So these feelings and thoughts, as real as they feel, are not
Yeah.
actually telling me the truth about who I am.
Potentially
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a really
Yeah, and they can't hurt you.
important step.
They can feel very bad and uncomfortable, but they can't drive you to do anything.
Yeah.
They can tempt you to do stuff, but
Yeah.
they can't make you do stuff.
Yeah.
And they can't hurt you beyond feeling very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think it's important we normalize all of that too. I mean, I was just reading a story of this psychologist. Actually, it was a Christian psychologist in the States, and they're from Chicago, and they were at this conference, and the particular lady that was leading them said, I want you to name some of these things, the things you think about yourself that are just horrible. I want you to name them. And they filled a whiteboard with these things, and some of them were like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not powerful enough, I'm not skillful enough at my job, I'm not friendly enough, I'm not, and they named all these things. I'm not enough, basically, was the thing. And this psychologist is sitting there going, is it just Chicago? Like, are we just a toxic bunch of people that have these kind of thoughts? And then the lady facilitating showed a whiteboard photo she'd taken the week before at another city on the other side of the US, and it had all the same thoughts. And then she showed a photograph of the month before when she was overseas running the same workshop, and they're all the same thoughts. So these are a constant human challenge for us to work through all of these. This is not just you. This is stuff all of us have to work through with God and find healing in. So I think it's important just to name that. This is, it's not a weird deal.
No, yes.
This is great. Feels like I'm in session, so
Well, you're on the couch.
might need a whole bunch more, but that's okay. So taking it to the next level then, I guess, would be what if it's God that I need to forgive?
Yeah.
Very, very heavy.
I
this one.
think that is a heavy, but I think it's a really important question. Because the question is this, is like, why did God let this happen? I think that's the question. Or why did he let it happen to me? Or doesn't he care? Like, if he is all powerful and he's the all-knowing, surely he could have stepped in to stop this. Like, why would he not want to do that? Why would he not want to? And in fact, Jesus himself references this story of this tower falling down and these bunch of people dying. He goes, hey, do you think you're more righteous than them, or they're less righteous than you? And he says, no. But he doesn't tell us why. He never tells us why these things happen. And so there's a whole bunch of things that happen that are tough questions that we really don't have answers for all of those questions. And maybe we'll just never know why. But there's a few practices that Scripture does give us that is really helpful in these kind of situations. One of them we covered in week 2, which is lament, which is just to say, I can hold my pain about this situation in the presence of God without it needing to be resolved. I just need to know that He's heard this, and this can be a tremendously healing process. I mean, and it's important that we name them. That is, I guess, one of the things I wanted to really mention today, because I don't think we often name the things that we really heard about because we feel like they're too vulnerable or they're too confronting or whatever, but they're really important. Or we say, well, God knows everything, so I don't need to name them. Well, there's times when my kids will come to me and say, I'm really stressed or I'm really struggling with this. Well, I know they're stressed and I know they're struggling with this. They don't need to say that to me, but they do say that to me. Well, why do they say that to me? They say that to me because it's an act of care. It's an act of, I want you to participate in this pain that I'm feeling right now. I want you to hear what's happening inside of me so you can connect and affirm me in the midst of this. And same in our prayer life. We can take all this stuff and we can bring it into the presence of God and name it in His presence so we can receive His comfort. So we won't always know this side of heaven why all of these things happen. But God is big enough to handle them. And that includes our rage against Him at times. We read the Psalms, we find that people are crying out, like, why God, why? Why is this happening? Why are we going to exile? Why are we losing these battles? Why is this happening? It completely normalizes asking those really hard questions of Him, and that we need to feel okay that we can do that. We said in an earlier session, like, if you feel really uncomfortable about that, if you feel like, I'm not sure I could say to God some of these big things, then go find a psalm that says those big things and pray the psalm. Then you can feel like you're not going to be struck by lightning because this is already in the Bible. Things are being named, stuff's being poured out, and you can participate in that prayer. And it can actually give you some vocabulary sometimes to name some of the things that you might struggle finding names for.
Yep, that's really good. Because a lot of people have a lot of shame about feeling anger towards God, so then they go to denial, which is always appealing, and, no, I don't, kind of thing.
Yeah, which is useless.
Well, God knows, as we've said, I think in every session, how you feel, but there's really no moving through it if you're not going to be honest with yourself about what's going on. Yeah,
you've said before, like, the only way is through. Like, the only way forward is through.
Yeah.
There's not...
Would be nice if there was another way.
The outside
We've
way.
all tried all the other ways.
Yeah, we have tried all the other ways.
Yeah.
So the way forward is through,
Yeah.
That's really
And God's
good.
here for it. He's big enough. Like, what sort of a God couldn't cope with the fact that we're angry with Him?
Yeah,
You
right.
know, not the one that I believe in. So He's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And His love is bigger than that.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, about when to forgive God. When I was going through a very traumatic experience, the loss of a close loved one, I was sharing with someone at church, and they gave me a passage. And I don't know if that passage relieved some of the trauma, or it relieved some of the thoughts about forgiving God.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it kind of felt like it was helping me heal.
It was comfort.
Yeah.
So there's, and again, we're getting into my session now.
But I mean, I think it's important. That's great that you name that, right?
So
because that is what grace is. Grace is God acting to do what we can't do on our own. He's acting through that verse to do something in you that you can't do on your own, and that's at the.
And that's such a good example because I don't know, like none of us can know what it was about that specific act. I think there was grace on that was what you needed.
Yeah.
Who knows what aspect of it cut through.
Yeah.
But God did.
Yeah.
And on an interesting note, it wasn't someone I was very close with either. It was just like, I'd heard this passage a while back, it might help you.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, who are you? But very blessed.
So good. So good.
Okay, so what do I do with all of this guilt if I'm building this all up?
Yeah, this is good.
For Kylie.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, and a common question is just, and probably one of the big drivers for us to do this course is that, in churches we hear a lot about, that you need to forgive and that it's a decision and that sort of thing. less on feelings, but they are a very integral part of,
Yeah.
you know, when somebody hurts us or slights us
Yeah.
or that sort of thing, and they're very big and very powerful. Our instinct is, let's make them go away. How do I make them go away?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And what we've been talking about is, with this approach, is that, you know, that may not be in our control
Yeah.
to make them go away, but we can learn to relate to them in a different way.
It's good.
So if I've done everything that I possibly can to try and outrun the guilt or talk myself out of it or bury it or call it something else or whatever it is, and it's still there and it's in my face and it's so uncomfortable and it's all the time, maybe I can learn to at least step back from it a little bit,
Yep.
name it. So hello, guilt's here.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that guilt's here. What is it like? Whereabouts would it be in your body? If you had to put your hand on it, where would it be? Well, maybe it would be down here, or maybe it would be in your chest, or maybe it's just in your head. But if you just had to stop and pause and kind of situate it somewhere, where would it be? What colour would it be if you could give it a colour? Would it be heavy? Would it be light? Would it be a shape? You know, just ways of kind of externalising it from you, but just being very attuned to what you're experiencing in it. That's a very different thing to being so fused to it that you can see nothing else. Because you are not your guilt, you're experiencing that, or whatever the feeling is, or the anger. Or
Yeah.
I think we're jumping around from topic to topic, but really the strategy is the same. And it starts with just being, you know, slowing everything down and just being really attuned to what's going on in your body at this time. And knowing that, you know, God created you to experience this whole rainbow of emotions.
Yeah.
So nothing scary or harmful is happening. It just might be very uncomfortable and God's with you in it.
That's great. So I just thought of an example that we might be able to sort of unpack
Sure.
there.
Yeah.
I was thinking of what is something that might have happened that you might, you know, this might be really triggering for. And I don't know why I thought about this, but I thought of a friend who ran over his cat,
Yeah.
and like it was his special cat, and he ran over it. And it wasn't kind of his fault, like the cat had jumped out when he was pulling into the garage or something like that.
As cats do.
As cats do. And of course, you know, he raced to the vet or whatever, but the cat died. So, I mean, and that was something that was like I can imagine that is the kind of thing that could be coming back, you know, like why did that happen, or why did I do that, or I was silly, or, you know, all of those feelings that
those
come with
sorts of
that.
feelings. Yep.
Yeah. So if that was you, if you had run over your cat,
Yep.
and that feeling had come back, maybe you could just take us through this little script of saying,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
what the guilt is here, or
Yeah. Okay. So first thing would be to just notice that, you know, I'm feeling guilty. So guilt is here. Guilt is in the room, and I'm in the room. We're both here. So I'm going to make room for you, guilt. I don't need to understand you. I'm just going to notice. I'm just going to notice that you're here. And I'm also just going to notice that God's here too. So God's here, guilt's here, and I'm here. We can all be present here together. It doesn't feel great, but I can be okay. I don't have to wait for it to go to be okay, even though I don't like it, and I would prefer it wasn't here. And I'm also just noticing that the healer is here as well.
that's great. That's powerful. Man, I got lost in that.
It was good.
Yeah.
I think you kind of covered off on my next question, which was I don't even know where to begin. So from what you
Yeah.
were saying, Kylie, it's acknowledging that guilt is there. It's in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is probably where we start to get into some scripts a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
But in terms of forgiveness as a big picture question, I don't even know where to begin with forgiving myself or forgiving God or forgiving another person. I would say that it begins with a posture. And your posture is that, you know, you are turning towards God and that you're saying, God, I love you and I trust you, or I want to trust you. And I value your ways and I want to do things your way, but I don't know how to. and naming it. If right now you're like, I don't forgive them,
Yeah.
but I want to forgive. I want to.
Yeah.
And naming the feeling that is with that.
Yeah.
I feel so angry with them, or I feel so guilty about it.
Yeah.
So it's just coming to God with that posture of, I know your ways work. I want to do things your way, but I also don't want to right now, and I need help.
Yeah.
So that's where you would begin. And if judgmental thoughts come up, either about yourself or, about whatever they are, just notice them. And, if really difficult feelings come up, again, just notice them and just open up to them. Allow yourself to go there, allow yourself to feel from them. And then, if you can have strategies like unhooking or being able to step back from them, or being able to maybe, describe, be curious, as much as that's painful, knowing that it can't actually hurt you, then that might be helpful too, just to unhook. And maybe you can even use a strategy like visualising yourself as they're external to you, visualising yourself kind of holding them and giving them over to Jesus. And I mean, who knows what will happen with that visualisation? It may get caught in a loop, may come back again. That's okay. Doesn't mean it didn't work. It just means that this is separate to you and that you are in this process and that you are inviting Jesus into it with you.
So good.
Yeah.
I think one that you've given me before was you would take a thought and you'd put it on a leaf.
Oh, that's it.
and you would float it down the river.
Yep.
And I actually found that really helpful.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I had this thought about, maybe I'm feeling terrible about this, or I'm embarrassed about this, or I'm struggling with this. I just take that thought and I put it on a leaf, and I just let it float down the river. And sometimes the thought will come back. So I just put it on another leaf and float it on down the river. And there's something in that that's just, it's a releasing, right, of that thought.
It is
not
a
fusing.
releasing, and I think the hard part about that is not getting hooked in, is it working, is it working?
Right. So
because,
good.
The is it working is, I don't feel better yet, it's not working. That stuff doesn't work. So it's not really about, is it working? Like, you might go through that visualisation and still feel all the things.
Yeah.
But, that you are building a discipline, I suppose, around that. I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings, I'm experiencing them, and they're external to me, and I'm putting them here. So even if I can still see them in the stream, that's okay. That means I can see other things as well. They're not here anymore, they're here.
Yeah, that's good. They're not taking over my whole world.
Yeah, that's right. And if they're here, I don't like that, but I can still do other things.
Yeah.
I can, get on with the things that are important to me in my life.
Yeah.
Whereas if the leaf is here, I can't even see the important things, let alone, be mobilised to do them.
Yeah.
So if I'm insisting that they go here, which is, not existing anymore, well, then that doesn't really work. If it did, we would do it. But it doesn't.
That's right.
So instead, we're just going to put it here and know that it's there, and that's okay, and I'm here, and I can do what matters.
Yeah.
And be the person I want to be, even when it's there, messing with me.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Glenn, if you take a leaf to a sushi tray, would you put would that be it?
Yeah, we're mixing the metaphors here. Well, I mean, it is wrapped in like seaweed, right? Which is like a kind of leaf. So, we're in the ballpark there.
Fair enough. Very good.
So good. Hey, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a couple of sorry role plays with some scripts. So if you actually have to say sorry to someone. And Luke and I are going to do this. I'm going to apologise to Luke. I probably won't. Let's pick something, and then we're going to talk about anyway, let's do that first. Then we're going to talk about something else that's related to this. So if we can probably put up a slide here, Oz, this one on how to say sorry. I know that sounds ridiculous, right? It's like, are we a bunch of 3-year-olds when we're not? But we found it's really helpful to have a little script here that you can work your way through. And so maybe before step 1, let's imagine I'm in step 0 and I'm feeling terrible about something I've done. Let's pick something smallish to get started. Let's say I keep eating your lunch out of the shared fridge at work.
This is not a small thing, but
This is not.
but we'll call it small for the purposes of
and
today.
there's some, like delicious Greek food that keeps coming in, and I keep going. There's quite a lot of it. He won't eat all of it, so I just kind of eat half of it. And okay, we're before step one though. It's like, I really need to say sorry because Luke has, keeps saying, why is there so little lunch left here each day? And so I'm feeling worried about that. Like I don't want to go and talk to Luke. But my value is that I can still feel worried and go and talk to Luke. I can do both of those things, right?
Well, yeah, and also your value is the relationship.
Yes.
The relationship is important.
Yeah.
So I want to behave in a way that
Yep.
is going to repair
Yes.
the relationship
Yep.
because I value it.
Right.
So
That's my value.
I can do hard things
Yep.
in service of that value.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, Luke, so let's just go. So I go to Luke and I say, Luke, I need to talk to you today because I'm really sorry, but I've been eating your lunch at work each day. Now, that's just, first of all, I'm going to name what I did. Like I'm going to name that specifically. And that was wrong because it's your lunch. It's not my lunch. I can bring my own lunch any day of the week, but I don't. And I just really wanted to say sorry for that. And it was wrong.
I thought something was happening to my lunch.
Yeah, I really am. I feel terrible about it. But I know that it's caused a bit of a rift between us. And I know the lunch is part of that rift, but is there anything else that I also need to make good here?
No, I think it was just the lunch.
The lunch was irritating?
Yeah.
And I understand that was wrong with me to do that. So what can I do? What can I do to make this right? Aside from not eating your lunch anymore, which I commit to do, what can I do to make this right?
I'm really not overly affected by it. I probably needed to cut back. But thank you.
That's very generous of you. That's very generous of you.
I went off script.
So why don't we say, please forgive me? Because that is a common part of a lot of scripts that people have for this kind of thing.
Yeah, we were just talking about that and saying, well, these are suggestions. This is not gospel, so to speak, of this is how you do it.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones that we looked at did say, please forgive me, as a part of the thing that the offender
Yes.
said, but really it didn't sit that well with us because that person is on their own.
Journey.
Their journey with forgiveness is their business kind of thing, so to ask for it is kind of up to them, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't know what other people think.
I think it feels like a will you marry me kind of level of something. Like it's a perilous kind of, if you walked up to a girl that you've only been dating for a little while and said, will you marry me? It's like there's not the context here to answer that question well, right?
Yeah, okay.
And same
fair.
with this, like they may be at a different place in this forgiveness journey and might not yet be able to say, I will forgive you, right?
Yeah, and it also has a bit of a vibe of like I'm asking for this for me,
Yeah.
I need to feel okay about it because I'm
Yep.
sick of feeling guilty about it.
Yep.
And I need you to let me off the hook.
Yeah.
And it's kind of with them as to
Yeah.
what they want to do with that.
It's good.
You can do your bit and
Yep.
that's fine. But to ask for it, I think
Yeah.
is kind of, it didn't sit that well with
It
us.
feels a bit strong army.
Yeah.
It does
Yep.
feel a bit strong army.
Yeah.
So if I was to say to Glenn, thanks for saying that, can you ask me for forgiveness? It does feel a bit weird.
Yeah, it feels a bit weird, right?
Not in today's
Not in the-
context.
Yeah, well,
spirit of it.
I think some of the ones we looked at had an extra step in there. So, I'm sorry, I ate your lunch. It was wrong because it's your lunch. It doesn't belong to me. Is there more to it than that? Please forgive me.
Yeah.
So now you're at a decision point,
And now it's putting you on the spot.
and you may not be quite yet ready to forgive me
Yep.
right in this moment.
Like
you're still
so
processing
your response might be, actually, I'm really angry about that. Like, I just need a minute, or
Yeah.
thank you for saying it, but I need to think about this, or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like it's not on you
Yeah.
to demand a particular response from that person, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Super good, super good. So our next slide, unrelated to this, can we flick on to the next one, Oz? And this is about, this is our next thing is some things that we should not do. Non-apologies. Yeah. So take us through some of these, mate.
Yeah, so again, things that are really more about the offender than about the other person.
Yeah.
So not really in the spirit of forgiveness or an apology. So I'm sorry you feel that way is a bit passive aggressive, like,
That's right. That's definitely not an apology.
Yeah. And it's similar. I'm sorry if you were offended. That's not really owning that you had a part in
Yeah,
causing
that's
the
right.
offence. It's more like, well, touchy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you misinterpreted what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but you, ...
Yeah.
But
you bring such a big lunch. Like, how could I not eat half of it?
That's right, yeah, which sort of negates the I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know, if that's kind of your go-to words, then maybe think about how that lands for the
Yeah.
other person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know, Luke, I feel
think
like...
but is a big word.
Yeah,
for
it does.
me.
It cancels the whatever precedes the but.
I think
yeah.
that's a big takeaway for me.
I don't know. I just what are your thoughts right now?
I think I've used all of them. And I think I used them strategically because I didn't.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, because I didn't feel like I'd done something wrong.
Right.
Ah,
Right.
that's a good point.
Actually, that's a really good.
Yeah,
That's a
okay.
good point, and that can maybe come up with our next little section here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think on reflection, if there is a matter that goes against my core values,
Yep.
and I've responded according to my core values,
Yep.
I would possibly use one of those.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe you would use one of these as a segue to we're still not okay here? Or...
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Super
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so I guess these non-apologies were more coming from a place of I've done the wrong thing and I'm genuinely trying to...
I'm trying to say sorry, but I've got
Yeah.
some baggage here that I'm still, like, I'm not quite owning it.
Oh,
or-
sorry. Yeah. These, yeah.
It's good. Really good.
Forget what I said. Listen to him.
Okay. Next slide. Take us through this. So this next slide here is about the other side of the equation. So this is someone who's hurt you, but has not said sorry. What do we do in those kind of situations?
Yeah, so again, everything is very context specific. So, these are general guidelines perhaps,
Yep.
which are not pan-applicable in all situations, and that's why we thought, for little things, what you might do is quite different to what you would do for big things.
Yeah.
So we've divided it up into tiny things, smallish things,
Medium-ish
medium things, and large things.
Yeah.
So, for tiny things, we thought, well, would you consider just letting it go, just dropping it? Like, none of us are perfect. We're all annoying in our own way from time to time.
Yeah.
So can you just extend grace to that person and just let it go? Are you willing to do that? And if not, that's fine. That's your call. And you might have your reasons for that.
Yeah.
But that's an option, is to just let it go. Like, that person's having a bad day or whatever.
So that's the cut you off in traffic level offence kind of
Possibly.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if, your partner snaps at you or,
Yep.
something like
After a
that.
long day,
Yeah,
come
that's right.
home,
But that's
really
not,
tired.
what they normally do. And,
Sure.
there's context around it. And you're like, just, it's okay.
Tiny things.
It's okay.
That's why it's a
Yeah.
magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Tiny. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah,
So-
small things.
Yeah, so small things. We talked about the good old AAA sandwich, which is from management, or
I don't know.
where'd
It's a
that come
business
from?
thing.
Yeah, business thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I still think there's value in it. So,
Yep.
if you do value maintaining a relationship with that person,
Yep.
we're all pretty fragile and sensitive little people. So, the idea is you would apply this affirm, adjust, affirm. So you would slip the correction in between two affirmations for the person. So, you might say something, can you think of an example?
Yeah, so I say, Luke, I love working with you, and I love that we get to, to hang out all day, and isn't it great that we have a car park downstairs? That's fabulous. But I just want to mention, sometimes when you park in my car park, it sometimes causes me a little grief because it's close to the door and I need to move the heavy stuff in each morning, and that's a bit of a thing. It's not major, but I want to talk about it because I such value friendship, and working with you is a delight for me, and this would just really keep things smooth, and I'm loving it. Is that
Yeah.
That's an average off-the-cuff version of a AAA sandwich. Affirm, adjust, affirm. And then maybe chicken. Yeah. Great.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Okay. So that's
Don't touch my car.
that's smallish things. Let's take it up to the next level.
Okay, yeah.
To like a more medium level thing.
Okay.
A medium.
Well, you could do it. You wouldn't need to do it as wordily as that necessarily. It might be like, just as, like we had a great time today. We do need to talk about this kind of thing, but I really appreciate your willingness to listen. Or something
Great.
Like that.
Much tighter. Well done.
So, yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Medium things?
So medium things.
Okay.
And so this is maybe some of the territory you were talking about, where something of your value, like one of your values
It's really
is being
important to you.
violated.
Yeah.
And they haven't even recognised it yet.
Yeah, okay.
Or they have, and they're pushing on.
Yeah, so this is where we thought about you may actually need to make a time with that person and just say it is a partner.
Yep.
Well, why don't we use a real example from how we used to have those
we
breakfasts.
We could do that, or we could use a fictional example.
No, but how we used to have those breakfasts when we were going through a bit of a tricky thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And we used to, once a month, have breakfast, and it was specific time set aside to work through things that were not working.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it off the cuff in arguments.
Yeah, that's
stuff
really
like that.
That's really good.
So that means everybody's calm, everybody knows it's coming, nobody's being ambushed.
Yep.
We're putting time aside because we value, the relationship.
And raising that meeting is going to make everyone feel uncomfortable. If I say, hey Luke, there's some things happening and we need to have a meeting about this, you're probably going to feel uncomfortable, like, what's going on? Are they upset? And that's good. We kind of want you to feel that because it highlights that this is an important discussion. So we want you to come in, but we won't do it now when we're all fired up and ready to rage. We'll do it at 2:00 on Thursday where we've, had a chance to calm down and check in.
Yeah, because remember we talked about the flipping your lid and then,
Yes.
the brain here and, this is the thinking part of the brain, this is the feeling part of the brain, and when we get into an argument over things which is in all important relationships, we disagree sometimes.
Exactly.
But, if we just say, you didn't do the washing up again, and then you fire up, and then both our brains flip out, and we're trying to solve real problems only with an emotional compass, without any thinking, reasoning brain.
No horsepower.
So we need to go, okay, time out.
Yeah.
Let's make a time to talk about it another time. And then we're going to work through it because it's actually a big issue.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
So, and before we go, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, in a work context, it's like, we'll put a pin in that, we'll come back to it another time when we cool down, all these other things have been sorted out, then we'll come back to that one because it's quite important.
Because you're not going to, because that's a good analogy, you're not going to problem solve while everyone's lids are flipped.
That's it.
So, and some things really are worth the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we talked about when you do have that meeting, just some strategies such as using I statements, so, owning your bit, like, when you don't do the dishes, it makes me feel really unvalued or whatever because, it's my 6th task that day.
Yes.
And we've agreed that this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So that way you can't argue with an I statement. You can argue with a you statement, like you never do the dishes.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to make the other person defensive.
Yeah.
But if you just own how you feel when that happens, they're less likely to get in the defence with their own you statement.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of nowhere for them to go. They're like, oh, okay, so you feel like that when that happens.
Yeah.
Type thing. So
yeah, those always and never kind of situations.
Yeah, those kind of and because they're not true anyway. Like he does do the dishes sometimes. He forgot today. So and obviously the other person will get defensive and pick all the examples that just escalate things
Yes.
rather than move towards problem solving. So,
Fabulous. And that last category, so that's a medium level thing,
yeah,
large level things then.
yeah,
Significant trauma, significant consequences,
yeah.
large violations.
So I guess the principle we talked about here is maybe some of these things might be too big to solve on your own, and depending on the context, help is available for those
Yeah.
things. So, for example, a mediator, or, you might want to involve a solicitor or that sort of thing. You might want to see a counsellor. You might want someone that is a mentor to you, or,
Yeah.
but don't carry it alone.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong to seek that sort of support if you need it, and if
Yeah.
it's a big level thing.
Yeah.
It's
That's just
it's
wisdom.
adulting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wisdom.
So, yeah.